Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Invitation to a Conversation. This morning, this is the next to the last conversation I will have for 2023. My next conversation will be on December 30th with a representative from Medicare. But this morning, I had the privilege of welcoming Mr. Elijah Bobby Henderson from a Better Glynn. Good morning, Mr. Henderson. How you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm well. I'm a little tired. Just flew in last night doing a work trip, but I am here and I'm thankful for you to have me on this morning.
Good. Well, when that sleepiness starts kicking in, don't take it out on me, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Some people get irritated. So, first of all, for those who don't know you, are you a native of Brunswick, Georgia?
Yes, ma'am. I was born in Brunswick Memorial Hospital in 1975. It's had a lot of different name changes since then. But yes, ma'am. I'm born and raised. I left after I graduated high school, went into the military, and I worked one other place before I moved back home in 2000, and I've been back here ever since.
The college and the hospital I see has been through various name changes since I've been here also. Yes. Um, A Better Glynn came out in 2020. Um, whose idea was it to formulate this organization and how did it come about?
So our story is rather interesting because most of us within the organization had only met via social media. Our first time meeting in person was later in the year after we had already formed and had several meetings and had several different iterations of work that we had been doing. But when things started metastasizing, I'll just say, with the investigation to the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, we recognized that there were a lot of systematic issues that were at play in why things were so slow, why things took the direction that they did in the initial 74 days of the investigation. The attempt to close the investigation, just a lot of things were going on that needed to be addressed beyond just the one investigation. So John Richards and I had been in a lot of conversations during that time about how things were going with regard to, sorry about that,
You are right.
with regard to the individual investigation. We said we need to address these systematic issues on a more long-term and permanent basis. So we decided that we would get together with some people that were already active and doing work in different areas of social justice and civic engagement, and just active in the community for good purposes. We met on a Sunday, and in the middle of the conversation, we don't know who said it first. All we know is somebody said the objective is to have a Better Glynn, and that's where the name came from, and that's where it stuck. We have 5 of our original co-founders still working with us, and that's how we structure the organization. We have 5 co-founders, and we have 5 other members that are just as important as those 5 co-founders. We have to have a CEO and executive director and all of that stuff for the state of Georgia purposes, but within our organization, there's no leader to the group. We are a collective. We move as one body on all things, and we try to be unified when we come and move in certain spaces. So it is unique in that we don't operate as other organizations do, with having a central figure. We are more in the elevator organization structure, in that we are grassroots, and we don't have a person that we push out in front and said, this is the leader of a Better Glynn.
And so it was formulated, as you said, during the time of the Ahmaud Arbery investigation, trial, and murder. Was that your initial platform? Because since then, you all have evolved in so many other things. So when you first started it, what was your initial ideal? Was it just to cover the Ahmaud Arbery? And how did y'all evolve into so many other things that we will get into through our conversation?
Yes, ma'am. So we wanted to make sure that beyond the investigation into his murder, that we were addressing the issues at hand within the community. There were a lot of issues with regard to working class poverty, uh, our educational structure, and what the difference was the between the purported outcomes of graduation versus the testing in the elementary school levels, the inequities that we were seeing in affordable housing and economic mobility throughout the community. So it was never supposed to be just about the investigation. It was always going to be, we were going to be forwarding uh, inequity issues throughout the community with different structures in government and civic organizations.
And so does that, what you just stated, does that tie into your mission and your goal of the organization for a Better Glenn?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. We attack this with three pillars of operation, with civic engagement, uh, with leadership development, and structural policy. Uh, and it moves us in a lot of different directions in how we do work. But the chief end is bringing a more equitable solution to everything that we're touching.
And knowing that you are a multicultural, diverse group, are you also diverse as such as generational? What is your target audience, and are your members baby boomers, millenniums, and Generation Zs?
So I am the second oldest of the organization, and I'm 48. We have one member who has crested into the 50s, but our youngest member is in her late 20s. So we have a pretty broad span. I will say that while I'm not the oldest, I probably act the oldest of all of our organization. I've just always been really old. Uh, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, so I have a lot of boomer in me with regard to how I do work. So, um, and as far as our target audience is any place that is being oppressed and marginalized, and not able to access the power that is vested in them through uh, God-given right in the Constitution.
Mhm. Can you tell me off the top of your head, if you know, that some of the other people's, what are their personal reasons for, and your personal reason for being a part of this organization, and what you can bring to this organization to make Glenn County and Brunswick a better place?
So I've been doing this work since I was 14. I started following the teachings of Minister Louis Farrakhan in March of 1990, and it brought me into a greater sense of community and my personal responsibility toward the people that I lived and worked around on a day-to-day basis. So when I was in high school, I was doing a lot of peer advocacy and uh, making sure that systems were treating my fellow students fairly, and that we were having access to the same opportunities as other students around the country and even across town. Um, so this is just another outpouring of work that I've been doing since I was a teenager. I did it when I was in the military. I've done it on my jobs. Everywhere that I go, I'm continuing to do this work. When I converted to Christianity in 1999, it only uh, changed the motivation. Now the work is Christ centered rather than centered on the teachings of the Holy Quran. So
Mm.
for me, it's just the next iteration of my life. We have other individuals. You've had Shamika Fraser Sorrells on your show before, and she talked about how it drew her back to the community, seeing the things that were happening here and wanting to be involved. We have uh, Miss Laura Carano, who is by trade a medical scientist and does data analysis in the medical field for a living, and it's just um, something that draws her into the work is not only her professional credentials, but just her tie to people in general, and wanting to see people live the fullest potential that they have available, and making sure we're creating opportunities for them. And then our youngest member, Miss Kendra Hutchison Holmes, uh, she has a mother and a grandmother that live and work and play in this community, and it's not just doing it for them, but she also has two children that she's doing it for, trying to create a better community for them to live in. So uh, we have a very diverse structure but also diverse motivations in how we do business and why we do business the way that we do.
And so um, I follow you on Facebook, as you know, and a lot of your statements and answers could be controversy, controversial. And so sometimes, as God says, that when you're in the world, you're on a different mindset. And so, do you think a lot of times that you said now that you work underneath the Christiana opposed to the Quran, that a lot of people, if they're not on that spiritual level, they won't understand some of your responses to your what you're sending out there on Facebook?
So I never consider it controversial. To me, it's just a common sense of humanity and what we owe to one another, and being able to articulate that in a manner that hopefully is understandable and digestible, but also something that people can at least consider uh, in their purview of life, uh, that maybe they could change the way that they think about certain things. Now, when I speak against things that are very popular, um, it rattles some feathers, but my core remains the same. I
Mhm.
teach three principles as a minister of the gospel: love God, love people, and make disciples. And anything that's standing in the way of doing those things is something that we should really interrogate uh, at its core, and find out if it's really of the Lord. As the scripture says, we got to test things, right? And let them prove that their merit uh, toward the gospel work that we're all called to. And if they're not, mission centered, then we need to jettison them, and we need to think differently about why we do certain things. Um, so I think the reason why people think it's controversial is because um, it's not anything that this country is founded upon. It's not anything that uh, is going to produce personal wealth for anyone, because I believe that community is greater than any kind of individual achievement that a person can ascend to.
Okay, thank you. I like that answer, like that. Going into some of a Better Glenn's community relations, what was your primary focus when you became affiliated with the community, what was your focus to getting people to understand or see the difference or the need for the trial of the McMichaels and Mr. Bryant?
So, with regard to ABG specifically, one of the things that we needed to understand and wanted the community to understand is why something like this was even possible, or what was at the root of the community that allowed individuals to not only act in this way toward another human, but why the community kind of rallied around them and celebrated them as heroes in the first uh, response to the incident. Um, so one of the first things that we did as an organization is we said we have a root of bitterness within this community that stands in Halifax Square as a symbol of oppression and dehumanization of Black individuals. So when we talked about the potential of removing the Confederate monument, it was because, you know, as long as something like that stands in your community as something to be celebrated, something to be honored, you're going to have incidents like this where people are going to honor the villain, right? And call them a champion of good and a defender of liberty. So, like I said, we tried not to focus on simply the case, but you know what allowed those things to be possible. And having a Confederate monument standing in your downtown uh, says something a lot more than, you know, this is what our past is. It says this is what our future shall honor. So we want to illuminate that fact and bring the community to a common understanding of what that meant. And then the community responded positively in that it was the community, not the members of ABG, that demanded that it come down. The ironic thing about it is within our organization, our greatest hope was that they would put a marker next to it and say, this is what the true history was. But the community was far more ambitious than we were. We're thankful that the city commission responded positively to the demands of the people.
Mm-hmm. And next in line is Jackie Johnson. For the past 3 years, a lot of people were looking forward to her to be taken to trial. And now I read recently where it's not going to be backed up anymore, that it's going to come forward. So what is your thoughts on that?
I believe that every person has an entitlement to their 4th through 8th and 14th Amendment rights. I want a person to have their day in court. I want them to be convicted by the preponderance of evidence and not public opinion, right? And there is an assumption of guilt that is laid upon people in the public square just because of how they feel about a situation. But that's not the charge that we're given as members of the community when we serve on a jury. And I try to hold that in perspective, you know, when I'm not in a jury box, right? And with that, I think that there's a lot of things that she's not on trial for, that the community has suffered because of the way that she's adjudicated processes and people. There are people on 15, 20 years of probation for offenses that they were coerced into taking a plea deal. And now the rest of their lives are negatively impacted because they're constantly under carceral surveillance because of that deal. And they felt like they had no other way. I truly believe that there have been times where the system colluded once again in order to steal the lives of people caught in the justice system. And I think that she was one of the architects of a system that unjustly adjudicated processes. And people suffer greatly and are continuing to suffer greatly because of that. So it's not just the case that she's on trial for, but it's the wake of her existence in office that really does paint her as a person that not only deserves her time in court, but deserves to be disbarred for how she's treated people that have stood before her, intended for justice and receiving a very unfair process. Um, so when this trial comes forward, and I hope people serve their jury duty. That's one of the things that I'm a huge proponent of. Um, I hope that the evidence speaks for itself, and she has her fair day in court. And if the evidence speaks to her guilt, I hope that she is pronounced guilty. That the evidence does the testimony, and not her political affiliations, or that the not even the outcome of the murder trial of the McMichaels and Roddy Bryan. So I want the evidence to speak to her guilt, and I believe that she's guilty. But I don't have all of the evidence, right? So
Right.
her having her fair day in court is something that I'm looking forward to, and allowing that process to vet itself out.
And one of the hardest thing is to see a video knowing someone is guilty, and then you get the opposite outcome when it's taken to trial. We've seen that many times over and over.
Right.
The next thing is the well. Can you expound on the well?
So the well is became the target of a lot of people's.
Can can I stop you for 1 second? Can you explain to the people what the well is for those who
Yes,
don't
ma'am.
live in this area and know what it is?
So the well is a day shelter for people experiencing homelessness, to be able to come in and wash their clothes, charge their cell phone, uh, grab a quick bite to eat. They have a place where people can uh, uh, get some resources as they're experiencing homelessness, um, and utilize the services that they provide there to be able to go back home where they came from, through their bus ticket services, utilize the services to get their ID. If they've lost their ID, connect them to being able to receive their benefits, whether it be a VA check or mental health check, whatever it may be. It's and it's placed in an area that's really accessible to those people who are experiencing homelessness, where they gather on a day-to-day basis. So one thing about providing a service, it has to be in the place where people need the service, right? It makes no sense to put a cell phone tower underwater because nobody's there to use it,
Right.
right?
That was a good one.
So it's also in a place where it gets termed as being a magnet for people people committing nefarious acts, right? And then there's this collective identity that gets placed upon the people receiving help from the well, where if one person does something, everyone's guilty of doing it. And if one person's accused of doing something, then they are automatically assumed to be guilty. Again, I want people to have their fourth through eighth and 14th Amendment rights remain intact and in integrity. So just because a person is accused of something doesn't mean that they did it. Let the evidence speak toward their guilt or innocence. So because they had this uh, collective identity, and there was this swell of negative energy surrounding their existence. A lot of people just started calling the police for any time they saw a homeless person. It was uh, if one person did something, everybody did it. It really did remind you of the Jim Crow era of collective identity for Black people in the South. Um, and then there were some incidents where individuals, whether they're experiencing homelessness or not, got into altercations with other individuals because of the fact that they're people, and people with different opinions about how things should be often allow those things to rise to physical altercations. Again, it became this is what everyone at the well is doing, right?
Mhm.
And it just so happened that the individuals that were uh, being charged with these incidents weren't even residents at the well at the time. It wasn't on the well's property, so you get all of this behavior that gets associated with the well that isn't associated with the well at all, because all they're doing is good work with providing people with resources and services in order to lighten the burden of their experience in homelessness. And the business community was at the center of that negative energy, and they became at odds with one another. Um, so there was this pressure placed on city government to quote unquote do something about the well, and again, wasn't based on actual evidence. You looked at the heat map. The heat map is what the police department uses to determine where a concentration of criminal activity uh, is is growing. Right. So you have all of these calls that are going to the well. So it looks like it's a public nuisance, but in actuality, most of those calls, less than a third of those calls, were issues that rose to the level of arrest or citation. So it's not even that they're monitoring criminal activity, they're monitoring people's emotions,
Mm.
because people see something and they call, and then all of a sudden it gets registered. There's another call to the well, right? So because the well is a function of the church. It is a part of our call in Matthew 25 to attend to the poor and homeless, right? So, uh, but we also have a responsibility to be good neighbors. And in response to both of those commands, the leadership at the mill decided that they would accommodate the city by doing some internal reflection on how they could do things better so that they could be a better neighbor. Also allowed the public to cool down uh, on all of the negativity surrounding the well. Um, and the well opened back up, and they put in some things that would allow them to do business better. They've been back in operation for a good period of time now, and their approach worked. Right, they're doing business better, more structured on their end, and the public has allowed uh, that negative energy to dissipate, and there isn't such a need to see something, say something, so to speak, with regard to the well.
Do you think that the people itself was the issue, or do you think that it could be a twofold, and for the fact that that area is being upgraded, that they consider that a sore spot? Because a lot of those businesses are not even directly in the area of the well, that they're like, a few blocks away or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Um,
So I've visited a lot of cities. I just came back from Denver. I've been to Portland, uh, been to Houston, of course, Atlanta, uh, been to Orlando. And one of the things that is very common when you go to these big cities is that there's a large population of people experiencing homelessness. Um, Also, what is common is there is um, a business district that uh, does not seem to have any homeless encampments within it, but immediately surrounding is a large population of homeless people concentrated. Uh, and there seems to be a uh, understood existence of how they operate with one another. The city is not targeting those people who are experiencing homelessness, um, and they have certain ordinances in place that prevent encampments from being, immediately in the center of downtown. Um, what we had here what was a community that wants to expand its downtown and uh, also wants to uh, prevent any kind of uh, negative image um, for business to flourish. Um, and I don't think that there was a honest conversation between entities to say, hey, um, here's a direction that we want to go in, but we also want to make sure that you guys are still able to do the things that you do for the people that you do it for. If you go to downtown Columbia, South Carolina, um, there are missions around downtown. There are homeless people around downtown, but there are no encampments in
mhm.
downtown. So people are still able to serve the community that they're serving. Um, but it's not, we'll just say, an eyesore, just
Right,
to
right.
use a common term.
Mhm,
So what we had here was people not wanting the existence of uh, a community of people even visible at all. It
mm,
wasn't that it wasn't the encampment, it was the existence of the people, which
mhm,
gave it a strong sundown town type feel, right?
mhm,
You don't want these people to be visible at all. And
mhm,
uh, I think that because people didn't take their responsibility the right way, their responsibility toward all citizens, they
mhm,
allowed that conversation to swell into this uh, constant
mhm,
argument where people were attacking the most vulnerable people in our community
mhm.
and vilifying them. Um,
And so,
so
and
to me, it was
and
never the people. It was about the want to expand business.
and so, like you said, if they would have came out and had a conversation with them as they're rebuilding what they want to rebuild, they could have rebuilt that entity for those people not to be eliminated, but to be still part of the community. But they would have upgraded their building where they're at and made it more, up to date with everything else that they want to come together downtown, instead of trying to eliminate them. Because if they eliminate them from one area, they're just going to be concentrated and be put somewhere else and go somewhere else and gather. And
Right.
so they should have just right, rebuild it, give them what they need, and move on. Because we're always going to have homeless people, but not such a large impact of them,
Right.
and other things put in place for them to be. Okay. So we have a few other topics to get through. Why is it, what is your how are you thinking to change the city, not change it, to make it more durable? Because people don't like to go to the city and county meetings. And often when I talk to them, they have things to say. But when it's time that I tell them, well, go to the city meetings, go to the county meetings, have your voice heard, they have other things to do. And so, how do you think we can get more people visible or a part of what's going on in the city and county?
So that's something that we debate within our organization on how we attack it. One of our pillars of operation is civic engagement, and that's not just showing up to the polls during election season. It's knowing what's happening in your government on a consistent basis. Uh, so part of the thought was, well, we could just publish notes from the commission on some sort of rhythm, or we can just push out when the meetings are. Maybe people don't know when the meetings are. Uh, or we can just consistently attend the meetings and only talk about the things that really pertain to us as an organization. Um, but the fact of the matter is a few things. One, if you look across the country, commission meetings aren't well attended uh, anywhere because people be working, right? And within city of Brunswick, uh, more so than the county, there's a large swath of working poor who really don't have the capacity to be able to attend these meetings on a consistent basis. And uh, for the most part, a lot of the business dealings are going to be things that don't really pertain to them at the moment. Um, Another thing is virtual meetings have made it more accessible for folks. Uh, but even in that, me as a member of an organization doing work in the civic engagement realm in the community, I'm not able to attend all of the meetings that I want to, even virtually. So you have a county commission meeting that happens every 2 weeks, a city commission meeting. You have the board of elections meeting or the board of education meeting. You have the mainland planning meeting, and then you have all the downtown development authority, the land bank meeting. It's a lot, right? So
Mm-hmm.
people easily get overwhelmed with how much they have to keep up with while keeping up with their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think the ultimate remedy for all of that is to make sure that we have people in places that are taking business care of business on our behalf, right? If we are electing officials that have a heartbeat for the community and establishing a rhythm of uh, communication with the community so that the community can know, what's taking place, but also sitting on these boards, having people available to sit on the urban renewal board. Um, Make sure that we have representation when dollars are being divvied up so that the historical preservation, African American historical preservation, has the funding that it needs in order to accomplish the mission that it's given. So I think the ultimate remedy is we need more people to have time specifically for certain boards. That would give us a better representation, and then that community conversation gets stirred a lot more, and people know, what's important to them. As a person who sat on the Brunswick Housing Authority board, you know full well how much uh, happened on that board that the community was not aware of, that they should have been aware of. Um,
Mm-hmm.
So and then you can have kind of town halls and say, hey, we're going to invite all of the people in the community from these boards so that they can talk about those things. This is one means of uh, creating more civic engagement for a working class community that really just doesn't have time. If you look at who's able to attend parent teacher conferences, that is a great indication of who has the time to pay attention to these civic causes in the community. And unfortunately, we have such a great number of people that just don't have time because they're working long hours. They're working 2 and 3 jobs. They're doing gig work on the side of their primary job. They're families. They're attending churches, so on and so forth. And there's just not a lot of time for people that are struggling day to day just to survive the circumstances that they're given to live in.
And a lot of the local meetings are around the same time and the same day. So you're going from one meeting to the next. Yes. The next thing is you talk a lot about equity on a lot of your responses. Can you explain equity and how equity and civic causes and how it is separate and how it comes together for any community? Because you talk a lot about equity. Can you explain that?
Yes, ma'am. So equity, let's just talk in a financial sense.
Mhm.
Equity is how much I have invested, what my share of investment is, and the benefit that I get from that share of investment. Right. So if the community is divided up into 85,000 people, 85,000 people have an equal share and should receive an equal benefit, not based on anything other than the fact that they have a share in the community. Now, what happens is because of circumstances, other people are able to experience a lot more benefit of their share. What equity does, it says it looks specifically at circumstances so that it can produce the same opportunity for outcome based on your share, right? So, with regard to education, uh, I'm the only person that works in my family. We're a single income family. Um, so my wife is able to attend. She serves on the parent board at the school. She drops the kids off and picks them up on a day-to-day basis. So she has the opportunity to interact with the teachers every day. Um, she has that opportunity when she's driving the kids home to, hey, how was your day? What do you have going on? How much homework you got? She can sit down and work with them on homework. So because of the circumstance, our kids are experiencing a greater benefit of their share of the community just because of the circumstances that they're in. Now, what equity does, looking through an equity lens, it says every kid should have the opportunity to have that benefit because they have an equal share in the community. So what do we need to do in order to produce circumstances that allows them to extract that same opportunity for benefit based on their circumstance? If they're in a home where the parents work and they're not able to have that interaction, how do we circumvent that situation in order for them to get access to the same benefit? Uh, if there's uh, economic disadvantage that they're experiencing that's not allowing them to receive that educational benefit, how do we circumvent that so that they're not excluded from that benefit opportunity based on their circumstance? So equity goes beyond having an equal share in the community. It says, how do I allow everyone to experience the same benefit of the community based on having an equal share in the community. Now, we have people that are strategically disadvantaged because of the structure of our system. So what we have to do is we have to lower those barriers uh, that are systematically in place. Specifically, uh, it was announced earlier this week that Navy Federal, place where I bank, and I'm big on things, right?
Mhm.
uh, Navy Federal is approving Black people's loans at less than half the rate that they're approving white people's loans. In fact, that a white person making $62,000 a year was getting approved at the same rate as a Black person making $140,000 a year. So there's a definite issue
Mhm.
there, right? In how people are experiencing access to their benefit of equal share in a credit union. Um, so how do you resolve that? You look at why that exists. You hold accountable the people that are maintaining such a system, and then you put in prevention measures in order that uh, it doesn't continue to further itself. And then you just apply that same thing across all the structures of government and business and civic organizations, um, to make sure that we're doing the right thing by the people, so that their circumstances are not preventing them from having equal opportunity for benefit.
Mhm. Okay. How was a Better Glynn engaged within the school board during the pandemic? And I recently read that the superintendent of the school wants to eliminate the A grading system. So how were y'all engaged in with the school system during the pandemic?
So when the conversation began about kids returning to school during the pandemic, of course, this was the first year of ABG, but it's also the year that they canceled school. Now it's how are we going to go back to school when we're having such a raging virus that's going around and taking the lives of individuals. So one of the first things we did, we had a conversation with the school board and said, hey, uh, there are a lot of people that aren't going to be able to attend a meeting to find out what you guys' plan is for the school year. Let us platform the school board leadership, and so that they can articulate what that plan is going to be going back into the school year. We asked them some very poignant questions about how they were going to keep children and teachers and parents safe, what obstacles they had already in place that they knew of, and how the community could help with overcoming those structural issues, because this is something that we hadn't dealt with in 100 years. So there was nobody even alive that knew how to deal with this, how they dealt with this previously. So one of the things, back to equity, one of the things that we did was we started hearing about, once school started back, that schools were running out of water. Of course, kids couldn't use water fountains because of the transmission of the disease. Um, so we partnered with another organization in order to provide bottled water to all of the elementary schools in Glynn County that were Title I schools. So Title I schools, there's an economic disadvantage um, uh, being experienced by a certain percentage of the students there, and that's how they get the Title I designation. So we wanted to hold ourselves in the Title I designation, because most those kids that are not in the Title I school, which we only have one that's not Title I in Glynn County, uh, there's an economic disadvantage there. Now, we also wanted to look at how, if we say we're going to provide water to all of these schools, how can we do that on a equitable basis? So what we did is the schools that were experiencing the greatest economic disadvantage, we doubled their share of bottled water when we did our distribution. So wanting to be models of what equity looks like within schools and how we did business with schools. Uh, the next year, we challenged the school board to pause because our transmission rate was up high to start back virtually. Of course, they didn't listen, and we ended up shutting down schools again anyway. But we wanted to, present a good case as to why that should be considered. We also partnered with Burroughs Millette Elementary. They didn't have um, but one bottle filling station in the entire school. So not only did we provide them with water bottles, but we partnered with another organization, Glynn County Environmental Coalition, in order to get another bottle filling station added to the school. So everything that we've done with regard to the school is not just been to just be a public bully, but to partner with the schools in order to make sure that they have what they need, but also challenge them on the things that they're doing to make sure that they're being fair and equitable in how they execute on a day-to-day basis.
Okay. And for those who are just tuning in, I'm with Mr. Henderson with a Better Glynn, and we are just now having a conversation on the different community relations that they had through 2023. The next topic is policing in the community.
So back to those structures that colluded against the life of Mr. Arbery.
Mm-hmm.
13 officers descended upon the scene and couldn't recognize a murder victim. That said a lot about the police department itself and how it was being run.
What you mean they couldn't recognize him? What you mean?
Because they saw a murder victim as a robber who deserved to be shot in the street. He didn't receive first aid. The only people receiving aid on the scene were the people getting bottled water and towels to care for them, rather than doing their duty to provide aid to a person that was breathing when they arrived on the scene. They allowed violation of the integrity of the scene by not preserving evidence. Their interview tactics were askew because they were interviewing in a way that did not interrogate the issue. They believed what they heard rather than looked at the evidence to determine a different outcome. And of course, 74 days later, we found out that justice works when you apply pressure on them to make it work. So 2 days after the death of Mr. Arbery, the police chief was terminated and indicted, right? So, well, not terminated. He was suspended and indicted. So they brought in someone interim, and we was like, with the history of the police department, there just needs to be a leadership change. This promotion from within, this promotion through other means other than qualification, I'll just say, is not working for the community. We've had too many incidents where innocent people have lost their lives because of the failure of the police department. So we placed pressure on the police department to change who they were going to have as their next leader. Some people didn't like that, but we saw it as an opportunity to restore a faith in the police department to serve and protect all citizens, whether they're accused of a crime or not. So now when the new police chief was installed, the community and certain persons in power gave them all kind of heck. So it made it very difficult for him to remain in place. And as of today, the entire leadership structure that he installed has now dissolved. So we're back to square one. The new police chief has been reported on several occasions, left a wake of sexual assault issues from the department that he came from in New Jersey. And we've had a few incidents locally where police officers have been reprimanded for illicit behavior. And you have to wonder if we have the right leadership in place now in order to maintain the public confidence in that department. Now, on the other side of that, there are entities that would love to change the leadership by porting it over to the control of the sheriff, the same sheriff's department that is at least an accomplice to the death of a citizen for a police chase that ended not soon enough, that cost the life of a citizen, hundreds of thousands of dollars in damage to police vehicles and citizens' vehicles because of their aggressive behavior when the city and county are looking through the lens of public safety, as they should, with regard to when they decide to chase a vehicle. And the sheriff's department is acting with reckless abandon, and we're seeing the negative effects of that. So you have to wonder, is that the right decision? Along with other issues within the sheriff's department that don't really want to get into now, because that's not what this show is about. But
Right.
I think the ultimate goal should be to have leadership within the county police department that does a good job. I have to admire the job that Chief Jones has done in City of Brunswick. I have to admire the job that Chief Smith has done in the City of Brunswick.
Mhm.
And they're dealing with a lot of the issues that police don't really want to have to deal with. And they're doing an excellent job of that. So I believe that the sheriff's office and the county could learn from the City of Brunswick in how to do police work. And they're even doing it understaffed, right? So one of the things that that people try to say is that people operating in our space are anti-police. We're not anti-police. We know we have to have good policing structures, but we have to demand that they are good policing structures. And I think that if the citizens don't understand that, then they lose their opportunity to make things better for themselves.
We don't need policemen where we're going to have to consider, whether they're telling the truth or not, and always having to rely on a video to find out the final answer, because way back to Trayvon Martin's murder, I think that Zimmerman caused another layer of the way of policemen getting away with things. He talked up what was he was talking up something that wasn't even happening in reality. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? In real time, just to make the police think that he was already in danger, which he wasn't. And so that has been a continuing thing to go on. Yeah, that we have to get that policing together. Next on the topic is housing and living conditions. Now, this is separate from housing authority. Housing authority is on the topic, but this is just housing and living conditions, period, within the city of Brunswick.
So housing is unaffordable around the country. That's just a very blanket statement. There are a lot of things that have taken place that have maintained and created and maintained this condition. One of which is brokers purchasing single-family homes, venture capitalists, venture firms purchasing at some clips 40% of the available homes on the market and turning them into rental properties. This is exacerbating the rents market for individuals. And it's likewise escalating the cost of home purchases. And with the inflation measures that the federal government has taken to continue to raise interest rates to curb inflation, it's put home ownership out of the reach of a lot of people. So with regard to how you tackle that locally, you have to be strategic at building affordable housing and making an effort to partner with organizations, developers that are going to help you keep rents down and build more affordable housing for the people and the living conditions that people have in your specific community. I've been talking to commissioners about some opportunities that we have here. And I'm hoping that it blossomed into a greater conversation within government, so that people can afford to live where they live, right? But it is a national struggle, and locally we have to just be intentional about how we approach it. There are a lot of things that we can do. Unfortunately, one thing that I would love for us to do is illegal in Georgia. Rent control is illegal in the state of Georgia. Just like unionization of teachers is illegal. You have to wonder why those things is. I don't wonder, but you know.
Right. So we're getting down to the lighter side of our conversations, to some of the partnerships that y'all have been a part of. And the first one is the Boys and Girls of Summer. Can you explain?
That was
Yeah.
that was awesome. To be able to speak with those students at the College of
Can you explain to the community what that Boys and Girls of the Summer is?
So they take middle school kids and over a course of a few weeks, they drill down into a lot of different things in order to give them a broader experience in education. They bring in different speakers to talk about certain things. I talked about activism. And you're talking to middle schoolers about activism, and I'm telling them you're never too young to get involved in how they could be involved in defending their neighbors and being an advocate for their neighbors while they're as young as 12, 13 years old. It was a great experience. We had 3 members of our team, including myself, that were able to participate this year. We're thankful for the folks who put that together, and giving us that opportunity to speak with them. And I kind of feel like I got more out of it than they did, just because I got the joy of being able to speak with those students this summer.
It's been around a long time. I got familiar with it when I used to work at the college back in 2006. And at that time, it was just boys, but then they evolved into girls. So if I ever get the opportunity, I would love to speak with them. I know a few people that went through that program. Is it still from sixth to eighth grade? And do they still just focus on math, English, and reading, or have they evolve to other subjects?
I think it's still just those three subjects, but it's more than just the math,
Mhm.
reading, in English. It's I think it's a worthy program of our attention in the community, and worth celebrating.
It's like coastal outreach soccer. It's just not about soccer. It's about
Right,
academics and STEM programs and everything.
right.
Okay, the next thing is elections, voting, and you all holding town hall meetings. I was at the local election this year where you held the town hall meeting. So now, is this something that you are now anticipating to do at every election?
So it's always case by case. So our participation in the first one was in 2021. No, we started doing it in 2020 actually. Um, but it because 2020 was a partisan election, we didn't
Hmm.
have a bipartisan participation,
Hmm.
so it didn't really come out the way people had an opportunity to hear about candidates, but they didn't get to hear the platform of all the candidates. 2021 was a lot more robust,
Hmm.
um, and we were able to bring a lot of things to the table and allow candidates to separate themselves based on their ideas and their vision of the community. So um, this year was our fourth year doing it, and we think that it was very helpful for individuals to distinguish themselves as candidates, but also for the public to know who it was running,
Hmm.
and make an educated vote when they went into the ballot box.
Hmm. And so each year you do it, do you see things? I'm sure you see things where you can improve it. So you elaborate a little bit of how you think this local city commissioners election went? Because I know it was a low number of turnout of voters.
Well, we say that, but here's one thing that we do: we're always digging into the numbers, right? So uh, for non-mayoral elections, so a mayor where a mayor is not on the municipal ballot, um, so that would be a distinguishment between 2019 and 2023. There was a 36% increase in voter turnout.
Mhm.
So uh, everything is progress, right? Where are we moving toward? That means 36% more people participated in the municipal election, even though it's still a small percentage of the population that's participating in the election. We would all like to. I was reading the other day in the 1876 election where Rutherford B. Hayes ran for president. 85% of the electorate participated in that election. Now, that's also the election that spawned the compromise of 1877, which removed the federal troops from the South. But that's a idealistic participation in the franchise. So how are we moving toward that? And we have to look at where we're seeing those gains. And I think that the having good candidates, which we don't have a part of, but platforming those candidates in a way and challenging them with questions in a way that the public can understand exactly who those candidates are, and they can go and make an educated decision in the booth. I think goes a long way toward increasing voter participation. So while we're not at that 1876 participation level, we're moving toward it because we're seeing large gains. We're seeing double-digit gains in participation in the electorate.
Okay. Now we're down to your community work day. Was this your first community work day?
Yes, ma'am, it was, and it was exciting going into it because we had so many people that were interested in how they could partner. We had 159 volunteers show up for the community work day.
So can you expound once again for those who don't know what we're talking about,
So we attended a Family Connections meeting. And Family Connections is an organization that brings together a lot of the nonprofits doing work in Glynn County and allows them to understand what the issues are and how we can partner within the collaborative in order to make sure that we're all getting our work done. We're all executing on our mission. We learned that Brunswick Housing Authority had, I think at the time of the conversation, there was like 80 units offline, 93 units offline because the previous executive director for Brunswick Housing Authority had this vision to not restore those units, but this grander idea of building affordable housing to transition folks from public housing into affordable housing. It's not a new idea, but it also has proven to be a very long process. So you have to be putting things in place in order to make sure that you're still servicing the community that exists while building toward the one that you want to exist in the future.
Exactly.
And because everyone is experiencing a labor shortage, just because of the competitiveness of the labor market, the housing authority was short-staffed, and they were still turning over 15, 20 units a month while handling their day-to-day load of servicing the residents that already are there. And they were just not able to catch up to getting these offline units back online and serving the community. So within our organization, we said, well, this is a topic that we talk about, all the time, and it ties to the homelessness issue, it ties to affordable housing, it ties to the conditions of the working poor in the city of Brunswick. We learned that 16% of the community is experiencing housing insecurity, and it just made sense for us to partner with the housing authority in order to help get these units back online and serving residents. So we created a community work day, partnered with several organizations that signed up to participate in it. We had 12 skilled contractors that we paid for that day to come in and do the more skilled work, like cutting countertops and things of that nature, redoing stairs, something beyond just rolling a paintbrush or scraping up some tile. And of the units, we were able to touch 24 of them. And within 2 weeks after we finished the community work day, those 24 units were back online. So we put the maintenance department in a much better position where they were able to go in and turn over a unit within 2 hours, because they had to inspect the units again anyway. So, anything that was left, something, as minor as having a nut for a light globe, which we didn't have that day, they were able to install that light globe and put that unit back online and serving the residents. We wanted to get so much more done. We have some learnings that we are going to put in place for our next Martin Luther King Day of Service, which we're excited about. We believe it's the first in the community. It's the first time that a community day of service has ever existed. for MLK Day. We've got several sites that we've lined up. We're going to start implementing our advertising campaign this week, and we're already growing a number of volunteers and partner organizations. We're partnering with Forward Brunswick and United Way and bringing their resources to the table in order to execute on this day. And we're just really excited to get people out there doing the work of making a better Glynn. It's easy to talk about, but when these opportunities, it's literally good fruit laying on the ground, and all we got to do is pick it up and make it better.
So will you make Veterans Day, as you are a veteran and so am I, will you make Veterans Day every year a day of community service with Housing Authority, or will you pick another entity to do it with?
So one of the places we're going back to on January 13th will be Brunswick Housing Authority. We've got some other sites that we've already vetted and spoken with about how we can serve on that day as well. This is where we are. That Veterans Day was, more. This is the opportunity for us to be able to execute, and the urgency was there. We certainly hope that the Housing Authority doesn't need our help next year, that they're in a better position to, be able to maintain the workload that they have. Yes. Because one of the things that we talked about was, when 60% of their workload is going toward turning over units, that means that the people that are living there are only getting 40% of their maintenance work orders executed, right? So we want to just put them in a better position so that they can be self-sustaining, but also, put the challenge out there so that, they have the staffing that they need. They have the technology that they need in order to have there are better tracking services for workload, and they have some inherent obstacles that we were able to see. That this is part of the work that I do for a living, is work management. So being able to have those conversations and say, hey, here are some things that we think that you guys can do better in order to not have to overcome such a massive obstacle that was exacerbated by the bright ideas of an executive director that just didn't have the nuts and bolts in place in order to execute. We think that things can be better, and there won't be a need for a partnership with us next year.
And I heard you did a great job. Thank you. So let's go to what a Better Glynn does on their personal tip. Tell me about your annual justice journey.
Oh, the justice journey, it's like the crowning achievement for ABG, man. It's and it's because we're working with these students on a day-to-day basis, man, and building these relationships. Coach Vaughn is doing an excellent job with the Social Justice Club. We've expanded the Social Justice Club to include Glynn Academy now. So it is the Social Justice Club and not just the Brunswick High Social Justice Club. And teaching them about civic engagement, Black history, what their personal responsibilities are to the community, understanding the depth of the issues that we're facing on a day-to-day basis. Coach Vaughn just does such a great job with them. We get to visit on Mondays when they meet and just sit in and watch the proceedings. I anticipate getting a text message pretty soon to say that they need some more snacks for me to drop off. So
tell me about the trip. What do y'all do? What is your destination? And how do you, so are all the children from the social justice high school, both high schools, or how do you recruit kids outside of that high school?
So Coach Vaughn makes it available. Now, the trip, we quickly tell students that trip is earned, right? So there's a structure in place in order for them to earn their way onto the bus. they have to participate in 9 community service events. They have a project that has to be completed in order to earn their way onto the bus. Um, and it's not for someone who just wants to go on the trip. That's why it's not really the selling point of what we do. Now it's the culminating event, but when we have that culminating event, it is awesome. This
Mm,
past year, we did 6 cities in 5 cities in 6 days. We
mm,
took the students to Montgomery, Alabama, Memphis, Little Rock, and Birmingham. We visited HBCUs and civil rights museums in each state. We have even greater ideas that we haven't announced for this year, and even
mm,
greater ideas that we haven't announced for next year. So uh, and it's just a fun time, man. Just hanging out with those kids. They forced my wife to sing. They forced Dr. Brown to sing. Uh, they
mhm.
forced us to walk a fashion show down the middle of the bus.
Ooh,
But it was just a great experience with these students, man. We ate some good food. We
mhm,
heard some great stories. The restaurant that we went to in Montgomery is the mother of the restaurant owner, the grandmother of the restaurant owner, was a member of uh, the feeding community for the bus riders and the
mm,
athletes in the area. So being able to hear those stories firsthand, being able to hear from a state representative in Birmingham who was his got his law degree from Morehouse, and uh, just being able to hear these stories of the fight that these people are fighting on a day-to-day basis. We were in Memphis and hearing how the city of Memphis is dealing with the issues that they have there from a lot of different perspectives. It was just really important for the students to hear those stories. And ultimately, what we want is we want students to recognize that investment, go off and do the things that we did. We learned while we were here. We took ownership of the things that we learned while we were here. We left. We got a lot of education and experiences, and we brought them back here to Glynn County in order to forge a better Glen for them to live in. We're hoping that they'll do the same.
and I think that you have influenced one or two of those students to carry on what you're doing in the future and to make up their mind of what they want to do career wise or civic wise outside of their career. I think that's fascinating. I think that's fascinating. I think that's awesome. You already spoke on the Martin Luther King Day. So the next thing, we're almost to the end. You all had your first podcast last Sunday. Better Glynn is now podcasters.
Yes,
How did
ma'am.
that go and how did that come to fruition?
Oh, we've been saying for almost 2 years, we need to get this podcast going. We need to get this podcast going. And we've done some things sporadically, and but we finally just had to. I use a football term: stick your foot in the ground and turn up field. Um, we just finally decided that we would do that and say we're going to do it. We're going to do it on this day, and this is what we're going to talk about. And it was just good to get it going. But the conversation was rich. You guys got to hear some of the conversations that John Shamika and I, as a strategic planning team, just kind of have behind the scenes. Brought bore witness to some of that um, that we do on a day-to-day basis. And we're looking forward to having guests and talking about different things, seeding the information for the things that we're doing in the near and immediate future, but also some of our long-term projections and for opportunities for people to participate with ABG and help continue to build on the future that we think can be better. So we're going to work toward it being better.
How is ABG received within the community? Most of the time, do you ask people to come to the table with you, or do they invite you to the table, or does it go both ways?
It goes both ways. A lot of times, sometimes we're invited to not be at the table. Sometimes we're asked to leave the table. But
No.
but uh, I think people are still learning who we are, right? A lot of it's funny in our first year of operation, we were getting flack as being both a liberal and a conservative organization. Uh, when our response to that was, well, that's great because we're nonpartisan.
Mhm.
So if people love our ideas and hate our ideas on both sides of that table, we're doing our job correctly. Um, we're about the work of the people. We're here for the people. So if that makes an organization upset, we don't try to worry ourselves about it. Um, and we're thankful for every organization that wants to bring us to the table and have a conversation about how we can build a better future for the people. Um,
Mm.
nobody from ABG gets a check from ABG. We all have professional lives outside of this organization. So it's not, we don't do this for personal gain. This isn't on my resume. Professionally, I'm an electrical maintenance and reliability engineer. Um, Professionally, we have people that from all different walks of life, from entrepreneurial to finance. Like I said, Laura's a medical scientist. Um, so this isn't about personal gain for us. It's about how the community is going to benefit from our existence. Uh, and we will often say, if the work was being done before we existed, we wouldn't exist. So we are doing things that we see are gaps in the work that has been being done. So we don't try to stand in opposition to anybody, and we're willing to work with anybody that sees a way to improve the lives of the people that we're out here doing this work for.
Um, well, Mr. Henderson, we are down to the end of this conversation. I appreciate you coming on. I didn't know what to expect before you came on. But I tell you what, you are a very good conversationist and interviewer. It went very well. What is immediately next for a Better Glenn upon these holiday seasons?
Um, we are still working during the holidays. We take our break in August, so we're in planning season right now. The MLK Day of Service is first and foremost on our list of things to do. We've got some other things that are planned. We've got an event, large scale event, a plan for every quarter of next year. But even in the midst of that, we've got other things that we're planning on executing along the way. But this day of service, we're very excited about. We're excited about our partners with Forward Brunswick and United Way, and the resources that they're bringing to bear in order to make this a benefit for the people of Glynn County.
And so I know you have your own podcast now, but if you ever need invitation to a conversation to come out and, talk to the people during your events or whatever, I'm more than happy to do it.
Yes,
Um,
ma'am.
what is your favorite scripture, phrase, or testimony individually or as a Better Glenn organization as a whole to keep you all grounded?
Uh, I will reiterate what it is for me: love God, love people, and make disciples. It's the creed that I live by. It's what I teach. It's what I teach my children. I'm a father of 5. I'm a husband of 1, and we try to live that out as a family uh, on a day-to-day basis. We've taught our children to serve, not to make money. If you make money by serving, that's good. But first and foremost, we have to serve. We have to love our neighbor as ourselves. We have to even love our enemies. We have to love and do what's good for our brethren around us. So um, for me, it is a testament of how I live my life, and I hope that I live it well before the people.
If I knew you were going to show your NFL team, I would have had my Eagles sign up here.
Listen,
Eagles,
we're gonna go big blue all day long.
Eagles, Eagles. Well, Mr. Henderson, last, can you tell the people when to tune in to a Better Glynn's podcast, and then I'll sign us off.
We'll be back at you first Sunday in January. We're going to broadcast once a month, that first Sunday of the month.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. Tell everyone I said hello. I hope you all have a blessed season and a blessed day.
You too. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Mr. Henderson. Oh, he hung up. Oh, let me see how it went. Is he answering?
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, how did you like it?
It was good. I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. In the next hour or so, I will send you the video so you can show out to anybody. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
You did very well. Get some rest. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was good.